Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Township of North Frontenac's Council Meetings Day. The first meeting we have is a public council meeting, and it is to discuss a potential bylaw amendment to 1230D Ostrich Road. So we begin by calling to order, which we've now done, and approval of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Harmer. Be it resolved that Council approves the agenda for the public meeting regarding a zoning bylaw amendment dated December 12th, 2025 as circulated.
Any comments? In favor? We have an agenda. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, note that. The zoning bylaw amendment application, I'm just going to let Tara read it.
Moved by Councillor Harmer, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Be resolved that Council receives for information the planning report prepared by Jenny Kapusta, community planner, regarding zoning bylaw amendment application file Z425 to rezone a property located at 1230D Ostrich Road from residential waterfront to residential waterfront exception 7 with a holding symbol, and the council will consider a bylaw at the regular council meeting later today. And I believe Jenny has a presentation.
Okay, Jenny, you're on.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to pop up a map just to give us some reference of what we're looking at here. So this is an application to rezone the subject property, which is outlined in red on this map. And this property's lot line abuts the lot line of the RDoC waste site, so located on Ostrich Road, just off RDoC Road. Currently, the waste site is closed, but there are plans in the future to reopen that waste site. And anytime you have a waste site, whether open or closed, and a property is located within a 500-meter influence area, a study has to be done to ensure that there's no negative impacts on the proposed use and no negative impacts of that use conversely on the waste site, similar to if we're doing an MDS calculation. So this application originally came in as a minor variance application. After going through the reviews, it was determined that the most appropriate way to address some of the concerns that were outlined through that review process were to bring it to council for a zoning bylaw amendment. This way we could include the addition of a holding symbol to require the property owner to enter into a site plan agreement with the township, and that site plan agreement would allow the implementation of the recommended mitigation measures that were in both the D series assessment completed by McIntosh Perry, which is now Aegis, and the peer review that was completed by Cambium. So Cambium is the company that monitors and manages the waste sites on behalf of the township. When the initial study was done for this application and submitted for peer review, one of the notes were that the study was done on the basis that the waste site is closed. As I noted, that is the current situation of the waste site. However, it is a temporary closure, and the intent of the township was always to reopen this waste site at some point. Approximately 2028 or so, I believe, is the current goal for that. Again, it will depend on the need of the waste site and the existing waste sites and what their fill accommodations are. However, the initial study did not include a review of the influence that the waste site would have when it was open. So there was a couple of back and forth on this, and to ensure that the interests of the township were protected, including the opening of the waste site, township staff did consult with the township solicitor just to look at what the implications were. Planning staff also consulted with the public works manager to discuss this and make sure that everybody was on board and everybody understood the implications on both sides. The property owners did purchase this property initially when the waste site was in operation, so they are fully aware of the waste site being there. They are okay with entering into a site plan agreement. Generally, site plan is not implemented for residential dwellings of like a single residential dwelling. The site plan bylaw does allow this on a waterfront property when there's added concerns such as this. So that's kind of the long story. The short story is planning staff are recommending that council approve this zoning bylaw amendment to reduce the setback for a waste site within that, or reduce the setback to the rear lot line to 90 meters from the 500-meter influence area. Also to reduce the setback to the water body to 68 meters from the required or to 68 feet from the required 100 feet or 30 meters from the shoreline of Malcolm Lake. Also recommending as part of that rezoning, the implementation, as notice, of a holding symbol. And the holding symbol is in place to allow the applicant to enter into that site plan agreement with the township. And this will include the recommendations, as I noted, of both the KBM peer review and the impact assessment from Aegis. And these include additional monitoring wells being located in different places, monitoring the downstream flow of water and effluent that may run from the dump down towards the Malcolm Lake, as that is the way that the water flows. It's higher up inland and then goes out towards the lake. Without having the holding symbol, it wouldn't allow the implementation of that site plan agreement in advance of the development. And it's the recommendation of planning staff that that agreement will, as I said, cover off both the interests of the property owner, ensure that there's no negative impacts. It also outlines things such as if they were to drill a well on the property, there's added construction requirements, increased depths and casings. And this way, with the holding symbol and the site plan agreement being implemented, it will adequately address all of the concerns related to development on this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Council have comments? Councillor Fowler. Bring that mic close to you, Fred, please.
Yeah, thanks for the report, Jenny, but I'm really concerned about these setbacks. Are they enough? We're talking about a waste site and then the proximity to a lake. If something happens, are they going to be affected? What kind of reassurance can you give us?
An excellent question, and that's why, sorry to you, Mr. Mayor. We had these studies done in compliance with the provincial D series guidelines, and that's why we're looking at least a 90-meter setback to the rear lot line. The studies did look at both overland, like surface water flow, as well as the underground water flow. At this point, the applicants are intending on drawing water from the lake and not doing any well drilling, so that's a significant increase in protection of the health and safety of those using that dwelling. So that's where that site plan agreement with the additional monitoring, it's the opinion of both Cambium and Aegis that with the added monitoring and mitigation measures, including that 90-meter setback from the rear lot line, that the applicants would be sufficiently protected from any negative impacts resulting from proximity to that waste site.
Jenny, the site plan, does it allow a septic tank, a septic bed in the future? They currently have an outhouse. So does the site plan go to the detail level of not allowing or specifying the location of a septic system?
To you, Mr. Mayor, the site plan is looking at whether it's any negative impacts on the dwelling, so it doesn't speak specifically to a septic system. The property owners on the line now, there is sufficient area on the property to locate a septic system that would be greater than 30 meters from the high water mark of the lake, so there would be sufficient protection from the lake. There's not anticipated any negative impacts on a septic system from the waste site, as they're both kind of dealing with waste, but different versions of waste, if that makes sense.
Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Jeannie. Just a quick question. This is a new proposed building envelope. There is an existing building on this property, is there?
There's a couple structures on the property currently. It was previously, I believe, used with a trailer or RV under the licensing. So there's a small bunkie on the property that has a couple of beds in it and a storage/boathouse on the property, but no residential dwelling.
Right, so if we were to build a new cottage on any other lake, we would be 100 feet back. So I have a problem with this only being 60 feet back. What insurances are we doing to protect the lake with, we wouldn't allow this in a new development anywhere else. So why this one?
Yeah, so the original application, as I said, was a minor variance and it initially came in as a minor variance only to permit a reduction in the water body setback. So usually you're correct, it would be 30 meters or 100 feet. They're looking at a 68-foot setback to the high water mark of the lake. So the property slopes up from the lake quite steeply, and then there's a plateau, and then there's a fairly steep slope immediately to the rear of where this dwelling is located. Without the influence of the dump, there may be additional abilities to increase that water body setback, but because of the topography of this property and the location of the wayside, it was a careful balance between the more you increase the setback from the water, you get into more challenges potentially with slope stability on the property, and then you get closer to the wayside. So based on the reviews from Mississippi Valley Conservation and the D series guidelines, it was determined that the plateau where this is proposed balances out the impacts of both sides while allowing development of an existing lot of record.
Counselor Good?
Yes, you said that they're gonna be drawing water from the lake. That could be changed at any point in time, going forward too. They could be drilling a well. What coverage has the township got if the waste site did put influence into the well? Are we gonna be liable for it? Like, this doesn't look good to me.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. So that's where the studies were done to determine that what those impacts would be should they drill a well. So it was a little over my head. I am not a hydrogeologic engineer. However, there was a lot of discussion on that. And part of the site plan agreement is including additional requirements that should a well be drilled on the property, that there's an increased well depth based on the review from the wayside impact assessments. There's multiple levels of aquifers, and if they have an increased depth of the well and increased casing depth to I believe it's a depth of about 12 meters, that would tap into a water supply and aquifer that wouldn't likely be negatively impacted by that comes from the wayside. Most of the water impacts from the wayside were more of a shallow aquifer depth is what the study stated, as well as a lot of more surface or overland flow. And that's where there's a requirement for part of the mitigation measures to include installing an additional monitoring well close to the rear lot line, as well as regular sampling of the surface water that runs through the property down towards Malcolm Lake. And that's part of the site plan agreement that will allow the township to properly do this monitoring to ensure that there aren't any negative impacts should that well be drilled in the future.
Counselor Hermer?
If this party decided to sell to a new owner, would these conditions still apply?
Mr. Mayor, yes, absolutely. The site plan agreement is going to be registered on title of the property, and it will run with the property so that any future property owners that purchase this property would be made aware of the proximity to the wayside and the mitigation measures and additional recommendations that are part of the requirements for today.
Anyone else? So I have some questions or comments. First of all, I'm surprised this is even here. Setback from the water, it's 30 meters. We're not talking 27 meters or 28 or 26. We're talking 18. That's like 12 meters. That's 40 feet closer to the water than it would allow in any other place. The setback from the wayside is supposed to be 500 meters. It's 120 meters. That's 380 meters different. That's over 1,000 feet closer than we would ever allow anybody anywhere else. So why do we have rules when we're not even, we're not just bending them a little bit. We are completely trashing them. Trashing is a bad word, I get it, but ignoring them. Why are we building ourselves in a potential problem down the road? maybe the individual who wants to build it here is going to be completely above board, goes to sell it, and somebody else gets out of line or buys it, and now we have a problem. We've seen it in many other jurisdictions. We'll build it and somebody builds it and next thing you know, they're complaining. We're going to have all kinds of issues. We will eventually open this waste site again. We're going to have other problems. Why would we add one more? Then again, who's drilling all these monitoring wells and who's paying to monitor them? Well, right away, we're building in a responsibility for ourselves. So I'm not in favor of this particular resolution, as you may guess, but I'm only one vote. So any other comments? Councillor Ingles.
I guess my only comment is the risk you referred to about the future. I'm not so concerned about that risk because there's an extensive record that will always be there of what we discussed today. So if this owner or a future owner contests water quality because of the proximity of the waste site, we've got it on record that this was all done with eyes wide open. I don't think we have a risk issue in the future.
I think we do, and not so much from the water. I think that's one potential issue, but we're going to have odor, we're going to have flying debris and garbage and everything else. No matter what you do to a waste site, and I've been in at the largest waste site in Ontario, and they go to great lengths to control it, and they can only do so much. And this is so close that could be potential problems, and why would we set ourselves up for this? That's my thought. Deputy Mayor, you have a final comment? Okay. All right, let's call the vote. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's just.
Yes, okay. Okay. So public comments on this. So anybody online, first of all, wish to comment?
So I think Jenny wished to make another comment and then we can go to the online.
Okay, Jenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to address a couple of the comments on the setbacks. From the zoning bylaw, so the influence area of a waste management facility is 500 meters, and that's where we have to do the D-series study to review potential impacts. The actual setback stated in the zoning bylaw is no development or land use shall be permitted within 30 meters of the perimeter of the active fill area boundary of an active waste management facility. So when you're locating this dwelling 90 meters from the lot line, you're about 120 meters from the active fill area of this waste site, even once it's reopened based on the licensing. So we are complying with the minimum setbacks required for a sensitive land use to a waste facility, but because we're within that influence area, we did complete the D-series studies, and that's where we're looking at the additional monitoring wells based on the water flow both overland and underland. And additionally, we did have reviews completed with regards, like you said, noise, odor, dust, vermin, and absolutely those, despite best efforts, things do happen. And that's part of where that site plan agreement is coming into place, that there's the acknowledgement that you are in that proximity and that despite all best efforts of the township and best management practices, there is always going to be a chance that there is some negative impacts from that. Discussions that planning staff had with the applicants were that when they initially purchased the property, it was open and that the township managed it quite well, and there was very limited of the other impacts such as noise and odor and that type of stuff that they had as a result of the use of that management facility. So I just wanted to sort of clarify that we aren't reducing the minimum setback to a landfill. We're just looking at the impacts because of the influence area. We are looking at reducing the setback to the water body, and again, that comes down to a lot of topography on the property, and without the waste management facility, we'd have done the similar slope studies and review. Conservation Authority doesn't have any objections to the setback from the water. They would like the completion of a slope stability study just to make sure that there's no negative impacts on the slope as a result of the development, though. Thank you.
Is there anyone else online?
So we do have someone else online. Spencer Leptic, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Leptic.
Hi, thanks, Council, for hearing this today. Yeah, and thank you, Jenny, very much for inputting everything you've done so far. Yeah, I'd like to back her up that we spent several thousand on 2 D4 geotechnical assessments that were underwent through 2 peer reviews, and they passed, it was recommended we could still proceed. So these are professionals that I'd like to rely upon. When we purchased the lot, it was 2004. The original setback from the shoreline back then was 65 feet. So we were under the impression that we would have been grandfathered. Now I know the law has changed, but I'd hope the council would consider that that was not a factor back when we purchased the lot. We're not intentionally trying to build closer to the water. If you took a look at the layout of the property, there's simply no suitable place to build at all, except for where we are, and it's on a big piece of, Canadian Shield bedrock. So I'm very confident that the slope stability study will be passed. I did have someone from MVCA come out and meet me because the general distance wasn't greater than a requirement for slope study, but they came out and showed me the slope is immediate and it's steep, but then there is that setback, like a bench type level area between the water line slope and the proposed building area. So there shouldn't be any concerns or any anticipated concerns from MVCA about building there as well. With regards to the wells, I do understand it's adding one well for monitoring purposes on the township's, the onus on the township, but I've seen people in the past already sampling water over the years for the runoff that goes into the lake. So whether we build or not, that work still has to be done to determine if there's leachates that are, hazardous or toxic getting into the lake, and the township or province or whoever would be responsible would still have to maintain and take mitigating factors. So whether we build or not, like that, to me, that's not a concern for us. It's whether we build or not. I would think that's still a responsibility on the township or MVCA to work together or with the province to deal with any upcoming issues if that were to ever happen. Furthermore, I just did want to point out that we do have a neighbor that's also within the 500 meters. They're also drawing water from the lake. Like if your concerns are only with our property, I don't want to raise awareness of our neighbors, but there's already an existing dwelling there it's 100 feet from the water, but it's still within 500 meters of the waste influence area. So I'd just like to open your eyes to that and hope that you're aware now if you weren't aware before. So we really have gone through a lot of hoops to try and make sure that everything's done, up to snuff and on board, and we are not seeking to build closer to the water for a nicer view. It's literally the only suitable spot on the property. Behind that, the proposed dwelling area, it is almost a 15-foot drop off, and then it's low-lying water with soggy ground. So there's no real suitable place to build behind there. And with regards to septic, we did go through the steps previously, and it was determined that we would be able to install a septic behind, further from the water of the proposed dwelling site. So we have gotten through all those evaluations as well. So I hope we can get council's approval and blessing to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online wishing to make a comment?
Please, please use the raise hand feature. Just one moment. Okay, Julie Leptic.
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for listening to my sentiments as well. My husband just explained all of the technical concerns that we have with this vote. I just want to put a personal lens on it just for a minute, if council will allow that. As he mentioned, we did buy the property in 2004. We were quite young. We put all of our savings into it at the time. We were under the impression we would be able to build on the area that we could see would be the only option to build, because at the time it was 65 feet from the water, or if that's correct. Over time, we had two kids, we had a family, we built some time. We spent every single summer there for the past 21 years. We have made do with it as best we can without building. Circumstances have changed, bylaws have changed. We understand now that we can't grandfather in the same building permits that we expected to have back then. But we're a small family. We love the property. We use it recreationally. We have no intention. We're not big developers. We're not building a mansion. We just want to be able to have a space that's more functional as we get older. So I really would like the council just to understand that we're just trying to make use of the space that we've owned and loved for over 21 years. I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Is anybody else online?
Seeing none.
Is there anyone in the council chamber who'd like to make a comment? Deputy Mayor?
Maybe someone can just confirm for me in 2004 with the setback 60 feet or 100 feet?
So the new zoning bylaw came in 2004 that gave the 100-foot setback prior to that. So I believe it was July, but then it was 2004 when that bylaw came in. And prior to that, it was 66 feet. So right at around 2004, that setback changed.
But we don't grandfather that in. So if someone has a vacant lot and bought in 2000, it's still 100 feet today if they were decided to build, correct? Thanks.
Okay. Any final comments? Tara, would you read the resolution again, please?
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved that council receives for information a planning report prepared by Jenny Capusta, community planner, regarding zoning bylaw amendment application file Z425 to rezone a property located at 1230D Ostrich Road for residential waterfront to residential waterfront, exception 7 with the holding symbol. And the council will consider a bylaw at the regular council meeting later today.
In favor of the resolution? Anyone opposed? Carried. Okay. Any final public comments? Seeing none. Adjournment of the meeting.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved the council adjourns the public meeting at 9:26 a.m. 27.
In favor? Carried. Okay. That brings us to our regular council agenda, our regular council meeting for December the 8th. I'm sorry, I pulled up the wrong. Right? The 8th? Yeah, it is. Sorry. It's just amended December the 8th, way it's written. Okay. Please be advised, North Frontenac council meetings are recorded. By attending a public meeting of council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Members of council, staff, delegates, and attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behavior or comments. We begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place of the first peoples and their ancestors who were entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the Township of North Frontenac is committed to working with indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation. Okay, approval of the agenda?
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved the council approves the agenda for the regular meeting dated December 12, 2025 as circulated.
Comments? In favor? Agenda is adopted. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in general nature thereof? Seeing none, the minutes will reflect that. Zoning bylaw amendment, 5A.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce the following bylaw that has been circulated to all members of council. 2025-60 to approve a zoning amendment for a residential waterfront exception zone with a holding symbol. And that this bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. And can I make a comment?
You can.
So we would like to amend this bylaw to include, in the bylaw, we included the recommendations from Aegis as part of the holding symbol, but we'd like to add the additional mitigation that was included in Cambian's report so that both reports get covered in the bylaw. I think we give the wording that we're proposing.
Thoughts, council? Councilor Inglis, then Deputy Mayor.
I would just request a recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor.
So we're going to approve this today or not approve it, correct? We just had the public meeting today. With the possibility of deferring this to the next meeting, just because I'd like to think about this a little bit more. And I think after hearing from the person that applying for this, maybe some more thought should be given.
So that would be an amendment. No,
So you could just defer this motion, if you choose to defer the file.
is there any negative impact on timing or anything we're going to run into?
Jenny? Can you speak to the timing? We've had a complete application for some time.
Sorry, my internet's been very slow today. I was gonna join you with my face, but my computer's not doing that. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. I can say we have had a complete application for quite a while on this. I mean, there is always the possibility that the applicant could appeal for non-decision. However, my understanding is at least a decision to defer is a decision. That is the way I've looked at with other ones. And we've had that a decision is made whether the decision is to approve, deny, or defer. So it has at least been received that. So we shouldn't run into Planning Act timelines for that concern.
Maybe you could, excuse me, just answer this question. If we deny this, does this land then become undevelopable? Like, we never could put a development on here?
Not necessarily. If you deny this, the applicant would have the right to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If they chose to do that and it was turned down, then that would be a final decision. At any point, they could apply again for another amendment or a setback reduction for a different location on the property. It wouldn't necessarily be completely undevelopable. It would likely be a harder challenge if the studies had already been done in support of it and it was denied and then reapplied. But I mean, anyone can apply for any amendment, even if you turn something down on a property in the future.
Okay, so what would you like to do? Councillor Fowler?
I'd like to go ahead with a vote today. I don't think deferring helps.
Okay, Councillor Good?
Can I ask Darwin a question?
Sure.
Excuse me. This property, you know well about it, the waste site and everything. Do you foresee any problem in the future, leachate or anything going over to the?
Mr. Mayor, I've looked at this. There's really two aspects. There's what I'll call the hard engineering. So that was surface water, groundwater, and then the deep aquifer that Councillor Good asked about earlier with the well. So I think all of those aspects, they've been assessed and addressed, and we don't anticipate a concern or a problem on the property resulting from that. There are some recommendations, Tara mentioned about Cambium's recommendations. So their response included recommendations for like extending the casing of that would be associated with the well to 12 meters rather than 6 to ensure that it was in this deep aquifer. So I don't see a problem in that regard on those. The building locations nailed down. There's a commitment to not having a basement. There's the well provisions. There's I think site plan control will include some provisions around the tree line and to provide a buffer between the waste site and where the property is developed. So all of those aspects would be addressed. The only place I see a concern is on the softer aspects, the dust and the noise and the litter, and an odor from the site. So most of those would be addressed in our proposal to MECP to reopen the site. So like litter, we're obligated to control regardless. The access roads and dust, we're obligated, we will be obligated under our reopening conditions to address the roads and dust. And noise to some extent with the buffer that's being preserved with the tree line. So the only thing I see coming out of it that may be an issue with Ministry of Environment just given the proximity of a sensitive use, they may require more enhanced requirements to cover than the frequency of having to cover the waste that we do deposit there. And they may, because of noise, put some conditions on our hours of operation, different than would apply if they weren't there. But so I just see those two aspects that the Ministry of Environment reviewing our application may review and enhance because of a sensitive use being next door. But and then I think in the discussions leading up to this with the planner, that we feel that we can address a number of those things as part of site plan control. So can't say I don't see any impact, but I think it's manageable.
So this could end up costing the taxpayers more money in the long run as well.
We didn't really address, sorry, Mrs. Mayor, the monitoring we do regardless. And we currently monitor and have to continue to monitor surface water, given Malcolm Lake being there. The additional well that's being recommended, I would recommend that be at the proponent's expense. So,
Can we put that in the,
You're gonna package all this up, Councillor Fowler?
And it seems like this is going to affect our waste site when we want to open it up, and it may delay it. And we do need to use that waste site that was determined. And I think we go ahead passing this in favor of the applicant. I think it's going to cost us a lot more money later on.
Deputy Mayor?
Darwin, just to be clear, this waste site, if it does open, it's limited, right? It's not going to be a full waste site, a transfer site.
that what we're proposing is a limited opening. So we would take waste from our transfer stations, deposit it there. Probably larger orders of construction demolition waste would go there, but won't be open to the public. And we'd be set up to manage the waste when we deposit it. So a limited opening.
I wonder, is there any potential issues with methane, considering what's in there already? Like that's explosive gases that comes off of organics, right?
Yeah,
Decomposing organics.
Cambium addressed that in their report. They specifically addressed methane and didn't anticipate any issues. And it's, their logic is in there. I just can't summarize it.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, you were. Okay, so we're looking to revise the resolution to include Cambium's recommendations. And we're looking to include a clause that says if monitoring wells between the site and the property are required, or the property in question are required, we do that at the proponent's expense. I got that right? Is there anything else? So how does that work, Tara?
The resolution now reads, be it resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce the following bylaw. It has been circulated to all members of council. 2025-60 to approve a zoning bylaw amendment, the residential waterfront exception zone with a holding symbol, as amended to include mitigation measures from Cambium, and that the cost of the monitoring wells be at the cost of the proponent, and that this bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Councilor Inglis.
I just want to say I object to that last clause about putting the cost of additional wells on the back of this one property owner. There are adjacent properties which are roughly the same distance from this subject property, and if private property owners are going to pay for an additional monitoring well, it should not just be that one property. It should be 3 or 5 or 7. I think this is unfair.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to call the vote. In favor of the amended resolution, Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, my apologies, it's a recorded vote.
Would you read it again?
Be it resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce the following bylaw that has been circulated to all members of council, 2025-60, to approve a zoning bylaw amendment for a residential waterfront exception zone with a holding simple, as amended to include mitigation measures from Canium, and that the cost of the monitoring wells be at the cost of the proponent, and that this bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Yeah.
So I think John has a good point. Is it fair just to have the one landowner pay for that?
If you install a well between the landfill site and their property because they're building on the property, then why should we pay for it? We already have monitoring wells there.
Because we generally pay for monitoring wells around waste sites, and there's lots of reasons why we might want to monitor the water flow out of a waste site. This site becomes active again, it's quite likely that we'd be putting in a monitoring well in any case.
That's possible.
This is why I asked to defer it. I think it's more of a complicated issue to think about a bit more, but anyway, I'm fine with the vote, but,
You've rewritten the motion so that if I vote in favor of it, I'm partly voting against something I don't want. I'm voting for asking these people to pay for a well. I don't like the wording of this new resolution.
Chair?
So procedurally, we can remove that and put it in a separate motion to vote on. And you can vote on the bylaw with just the amendment to include Canium's recommendations as well. That's what council thinks.
What do you say, council? You okay with that? Councilor Good is, Councilor Fowler? Okay, we'll do it that way. Looking for a recorded vote for both? No? First one.
The first motion now reads, be it resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce the following bylaw that has been circulated to all members of council, 2025-60, to approve a zoning bylaw amendment for a residential waterfront exception zone with a holding symbol as amended to include mitigation measures from Canium, and that this bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Did you still want a recorded vote?
Right. Councilor Inglis, you wish to record a vote? Yes, we did. Okay. Councilor Fowler?
Is this just for the well?
No, it's not the well, it's everything but the well. Well's under a separate resolution. Okay. This is whether or not we approve the zoning change.
Councillor Fowler,
Against?
Councillor Good, Councillor Firmer,
No.
Councillor Hudel,
No.
Councillor Engel,
Yes.
Mayor Lichty.
No,
So the motion is lost 5-1.
so there's no need then to go to the second resolution. Okay. Thank you, one and all. Okay, so we have back back to the business, or back to the agenda. We have no business profiles on tap today. We have presentations. I love doing these. Years of Service Awards. First of all, I want to acknowledge some of the awards are for people who are members of the Caledon-Barrie Fire Department and are here today. And they will receive the award at the Caledon-Barrie Fire Department meeting or in Highlands Council meeting. So there'll be Richard Tryon, Shane MacArthur, Dave Avery, and Nicholas Cook. So we have some here today, so we're going to do this. First one up is Stan Seitz, 45 years service. The next one up is Tegan Wise, 15 years. John Inglis, 15 years of faithful service and dedication. Nicholas Ross, 10 years of service and dedication. Here. Darwin Sproul, 10 years of service and dedication. Gene Wemp, 10 years of service. Dedication. Okay, so we have cake. So we're going to take a few minute break and we'll come back to the meeting after we congratulate our winners. Welcome back, everyone. We left the meeting. Where were we? I should know this. My apologies. Yeah, there was a zoning bylaw amendment that we did not accept. We have to provide reasons for why we turned this down. So the reasons are proximity to water bodies, proximity to the existing landfill site, potential that site is going to be open or reopened, and the potential or the real potential for if that happens, for issues around litter, odor, rodents or vermin, vehicular presence, and so on, and noise.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, second by Councillor Good. Be it resolved that council denied application Z425 because of the following reasons: proximity to the water, proximity to the waste site, potential for litter, odor, vermin, noise, and vehicular presence when the waste site is reopened.
In favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 9, adoption of the minutes.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Be resolved the council adopts the minutes as circulated of a regular meeting of council held November 21st, 2025, and a special meeting of council held November 21st, 2025.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item 10, business arising out of the minutes. First item is the 2026 adopted budget update.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Whereas the special meeting held December 4th, 2025, the 2026 draft mayor's budget was presented to council for consideration. Now therefore be it resolved that council receives for information an email dated December 5th, 2025 from Kelly Watkins Treasurer, providing an overview of the changes made to the draft mayor's budget, and advising the budget is deemed adopted as the mayor has issued a mayoral decision confirming that he will not be doing any of the resolutions to amend the draft budget, and that council will consider a bylaw later in the meeting to formally indicate the mayor's budget has been adopted.
Any comments? Deputy Mayor?
Just one quick question, Kelly. I'm looking at your email with all the highlights of the budget. The CIP program, did the mayor not bring forward to be 20,000 and we cut it at 15,000? Why is that not on the, or did I miss it?
And the same question when I was going through it, and then I saw it later on. It's there.
No, it's there.
Yeah.
My bad eyesight.
Anyone else? Before we vote on this, I'd like to thank council for your positive attitude and your constructive comments and so on. I really appreciate it. I would do things a little bit different, but not much. I think we did a good job and we have a reasonable amount. So in favor of this resolution, the resolution's adopted. The next item is 10B, results from Integrity Commissioner's investigation into contravention of Township Code of Conduct policy. And for council's information, we have the Integrity Commissioner, Mr. Tony Fleming, on the line.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Whereas council submitted a complaint to Tony Fleming, the Township's Integrity Commissioner, on August 8th, 2025, advising Councillor Regent had breached the Township's Code of Conduct. Now therefore be it resolved the council receives for information the covered letter and final report dated November 11th, 2025 from Mr. Fleming, providing an overview of the complaint received, his findings regarding the matter, and his recommendations.
Do you have any comments? I have one, sorry. Want to give a comment?
Thanks, Tony. Just a question for you. I just want to be 100% clear on this. Your recommendation is set there. We cannot change that recommendation. Is that correct?
Through you, your worship, my recommendation is no different than a recommendation from staff. It's a recommendation to council. It's now in council's hands as to what to do with that recommendation. So council has the option of approving it, refusing it, or amending it. Now, if council chooses to amend it, I would just caution council that there are some things council can do and some things council can't do. So if there is an appetite to amend it, council can discuss that amendment. And if there's a question, or if you want to seek my guidance as to whether that's within your jurisdiction, we can certainly do that.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to make a comment on whether to amend this? Councillor Fowler?
Yeah, just a comment. I just feel that it's too bad that we had to go this route. I'd like to thank Mr. Fleming for all the work that he did on it.
Thank you. I have one question, and that is, I think we should, or one comment, I think we should amend this resolution to acknowledge that we have, we received his, the Integrity Commissioner's report and recommendations, and that we implement the recommendations as as presented to us. Right now, it just says receive the report. Doesn't tell us what to do. So if you would wish to do that, then I would need someone to move that change and someone to second it. So I have Councillor Inglis making the change, and we have Deputy Mayor Hoodle seconding that motion. Implements the recommendation included in the Integrity Commission's report.
And the amendment reads, and that council implements the recommendation included in the Integrity Commissioner's report.
Any final comments? In favor of this resolution as amended? That resolution is carried. Thank you, Mr. Fleming.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Appreciate your time.
Have a good day.
And Councillor Good has to leave us for personal reasons. And we don't see you before Christmas. Merry Christmas. Try not to call a meeting between now and then.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody. Sorry I have to leave early.
Okay. That takes us to item 10C, request permission from Claremont Community Volunteers to apply for a grant.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Hermer, whereas at the council meeting on June 12, 2025, council passed resolution 18525, receiving for information the email dated May 7, 2025 from the Claremont Community Volunteers requesting permission from the township to apply for a grant in September 2025 for proposed renovations to the storage room next to the kitchen at the Claremont Community Hall, and approve the CMCB and township's application to the Commonwealth Initiative for 100% project funding, and directed the CAO or the CMCB, depending on the grant eligibility, to enter into a funding agreement with the Commonwealth Leaf Initiative upon successful application for 100% project funding. Now therefore be resolved that council receives for information the email dated December 5th, 2025 from the Manager of Community Development advising CMCB requested to apply for the Community Grant Program Community Foundation for Kingston and Area CFKA for 100% project funding for a portion of the original scope, and due to insufficient timing to bring this back to council, the CAO signed the application with CMCB. And that the CMCB was successful in receiving $7,000, 100% funding from the Community Grant Program Community Foundation for Kingston and Area, CFKA. And that the program is requiring acceptance by December 12, 2025. Therefore, the CAO will sign the acceptance prior to the December 12th deadline to ensure the 100% funding is secured. And the council approves the CAO to enter into a funding agreement with the Community Grant Program Community Foundation for Kingston and Area, CFKA, for 100% project funding. And the council directs the Manager of Community Development to work with the CMCB to have the renovations completed.
Thank you. Do we have any comments? Yep. Sorry, Councilor Inglis.
So this is just a procedural item. You've already signed this. They broke the rules a little bit. Everything's above board, blah, blah. Thank you.
Okay, Brooke.
Agree, Mr. Mayor. I just had a quick comment that they did receive back, just for information, that they were not successful in the Commonwealth grant for 47,000. So this is the only grant they were successful in, which will be to include some cabinets in storage area for some.
In favor of this resolution? Carried. Item 11A, Communications A.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved that council receives for information Section A items of the clerk's administrative report entitled Communications of Interest.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item 10B, Communications B section. B1, Land O'Lakes Emergency Food Bank, request for assistance with food bank building search. I had a call from Tony Fritsch, the Reeve of Addington Highlands yesterday. And the Addington Highlands would very much like to meet with our CAO and myself to discuss this particular item before it comes to council. So we'd like to change this to just seek your permission to have that meeting. There has been a sort of a moratorium on closing the various offices, pending them seeking more information from the public. So we need an amendment to this, or what do we need?
So I think the rest of it would still stand. And I could just add that and that council approved you and or you being with Addington High. That's it for information back.
So this is just a discussion item then. Okay, so yeah, I have to wait for you, you know. Just read the last part. What you
And the amendment reads, and that council approves the mayor and CEO meeting with Addington Highlands to discuss this item.
in favor of the amended resolution? Carried. Item 12, Shore Road Allowance Approval in Principle, Kerr.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved that council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Shore Road Allowance Application for Approval in Principle, Kerr. And the council approves in principle the application to close, stop up and sell a part of the Shore Road Allowance in front of Lot 308, Plan 1045, Geographic Township of Barrie, Cashawacamac Lake.
In favor? Carried. Item 12B, road allowance between lots 25 and 26, Northeast Range, Geographic Township of Clarendon.
Be it resolved, moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Road Allowance between lots 25 and 26, Northeast Range, Geographic Township of Clarendon, Chenor et al., and that council approves in principle the application to close, stop up and sell part of the road allowance described as part of the road allowance between lots 25 and 26, Northeast Range, Geographic Township of Clarendon.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item C, Shore Road Allowance and Bylaw, Smith.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Shore Road Allowance Closure and Sale Bylaw Smith. And that is required by bylaw 2023. All that part of the Shore Road Allowance adjacent to lot 15, concession 8, Geographic Township of Barrie, being part 2 on registered plan 13R 5981 Mississauga Lake, be declared as surplus and sold to the adjoining owners. Appraisals of the properties are not necessary as these are Shore Road allowances, and the council will consider a bylaw later in the meeting to stop up, close, and sell the portions of the Shore Road allowance.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item D, Plevna Rink Project Update.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, second by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the manager of community development's administrative report entitled Plevna Rink Project Update.
Comments? In favor? Oh, sorry. I didn't know whether you had a comment or not because it was sort of.
Do we have a contractor for the boards, Brooke?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, and they're expected to be delivered on Monday.
Councillor Inglis?
You anticipate problems finding a contractor for the roof? Like, how far afield are you going? Are you looking at steel structures, wood structures? We've got a bunch of grant money we have to spend.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not anticipating as many concerns now that we will have engineered drawings. We have been speaking with some local contractors as well as some other contractors. I do think we'll generate some interest now. We are looking at a wood structure at this point.
That would be similar to the one that's in Charlotte Lake, right?
Yeah, correct.
Any other comments? In favor of the resolution? Carried. Item E, electric vehicle chargers update.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, second by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Manager of Community Development's administrative report entitled Electric Vehicle Charging Stations Update, and that no further action be taken at this time to downgrade or throttle the chargers, and that the township shall continue operating the charging stations under the existing operational model, and that staff be directed to continue monitoring usage, revenues, and operational costs, and report any significant changes or emerging opportunities to council.
Comments? Councillor Fowler, then Councillor Inglis.
Yeah, it looks like we're still losing money on this, setup.
And we budgeted for it. Councillor Inglis.
We're looking at about $14,000 a year in net costs. That I suspect will decrease in the future as usage continues and knowledge, and slight EV uptake. I was just looking at sales figures for Canada. In 2024, I think it was 16% of sales were EVs. So far in 2025, it's down to 8%, and this is attributed to affordability issues and the removal of all incentives by the province and the feds. But still 8%. A number of manufacturers are committed. So whatever we think about EVs, they will increase in number, and we are contributing to infrastructure that will make ownership easier. Also, I think Brooke pointing out that this becomes a target for owners. This location is a good point, and that will increasingly become known.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Brooke. That was a very detailed report. Explained everything quite easily. So yeah, I think it's in the future, this is a positive thing.
Comment, I was on General Motors, the new General Motors outlet in person, the parking lot. It used to be one EV, maybe none. There's several in there now. A lot of them Cadillac, there's also Chevrolet showing up and so on. It's becoming more and more mainline. You start looking around, their numbers are increasing. So, any final comments? In favor of this? Opposed? Carried. Item F, Seniors Community Grant, 2006, Community Hall Technology Updates.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, second by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the Manager of Community Development's administrative report entitled Senior Community Grant 2026-27 Community Hall Technology Update. The council approves the Manager of Community Development's application to the Seniors Community Grant for 100% project funding for equipment to enhance technology for our 5 community halls. And the council directs the CAO to sign the application for funding and to enter into the funding agreement with the Seniors Community Grant upon the township's successful application for 100% project funding. And the council directs the Manager of Community Development to have the new technology purchased and installed if the application for funding is successful.
Comments? Deputy Mayor?
It's just interesting. I don't know if you keep track of this here, but we apply for grants and we don't get accepted. Then we apply again the next year. Sometimes it takes 2 years or 3 years. Do you think there is like a pecking order? You have to apply for a couple of years and then you're bumped up in the queue?
You don't have to answer that because I don't think you can. No? Okay. I think this is, with the recent wildfire, being in the hall and people, you have to explain to everybody what's happening. They're looking for updates. If we could have smart TVs in there and all of a sudden, boom, there's everything on the screen. It's changing on a regular basis. All the updates are there. I think it's a great idea. In favor of the resolution? The resolution's carried. Item G, 2026 WSIB rates for volunteer firefighters.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives the Treasurer's Administrative Report entitled 2026 WSIB rate for the fire volunteers for information purposes. and the Council of the Township of North Frontenac set Workplace Safety and Insurance Board at the maximum coverage for 2026 being $121,700 for volunteer firefighter personnel in wards 2 and 3, and that the maximum number of members of the brigade shall not exceed 30 members per station, plus the Director of Emergency Services, Fire Chief, and Assistant Fire Chief.
Comments? In favor of the resolution? Opposed? Carried. Item H, Employee Benefits Renewal and Compensation Review Consultant.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Engel, seconded by moved by Councillor Engel, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved that Council receives for information the Treasurer's Administrative Report entitled Employee Benefit Renewal and Compensation Review Consultant. And the Council approves continuing to offer employee benefits through Canada Life for 2026 with no changes to the benefits provided. And the Council approves continuing to use Gallagher Benefit and Retirement Services in 2026 and to work with Gallagher to review going to market for benefits in 2027. And that Council approves single sourcing Gallagher Benefit Services to complete the compensation and pay equity review in 2026.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item I, Diabetes Canada Textile Donation Bins, Plevna and 506 waste site locations.
Moved by Councillor Ingalls, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved that Council receives for information the Public Works Manager's Administrative Report entitled Diabetes Canada Textile Donation Bins, Plevna and 506 waste site locations. The Council will consider a bylaw later in the meeting to enter into a service agreement, including insurance requirements with Diabetes Canada to provide 2 donation bins, one at Plevna waste site and one at 506 waste site.
Comments? Councillor Fowler?
So is this a place where you can drop your clothing off? Is that what it's
Darrell?
designed for?
It is, Mr. Mayor. It's a bin, you see them elsewhere, where you can deposit clothing or textiles, items that we've never accepted at the reuse center. So I say that's a good initiative to have an opportunity to recycle those materials.
Deputy Mayor?
Just two comments or a question. So one of the, when you go into the cities, you see these diabetes containers and they can be a mess. And I guess we won't have that issue at our waste sites because we'll have staff there. And sure, there can be piles and piles outside these bins.
Yeah, we discussed, I saw that as well, and it's typical at a lot of locations. I think it will, well, one, we have a commitment from the organization to pick them up when they're notified. And 2, because they're in the waste site and only accessed when the site's open, I think a lot of what you see at parking lots and stuff is after hour stuff and people accessing them.
And then my second comment is, and you probably don't know the answer to this. So they're going to use the textiles that are put in there. Are they going to be, like if I drop an old suit off, is that going to a reuse center or is that being recycled? And if they can't recycle it, do they just put it in another waste site somewhere else?
No, they have the association has a standing agreement with Value Village. So their items they collect go to Value Village. And I'm assuming at that end, either acceptable for sale and hit the floor in the store, or will go to, there's also a market just for textiles, clothing that can't be reused. So I'm assuming that that's where it would go.
Anyone else? In favor of the resolution? Carried. Takes us to item 13, Committee of Adjustment Planning Advisory Committee report.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Ingalls. Be it resolved that Council receives for information the minutes of a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment Planning Advisory Committee held October 27th, 2025.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item 13B, Environmental Task Force minutes.
Moved by Councillor Ingalls, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved that Council receives for information notes of the Environmental Task Force dated October 28, 2025, and that Council accepts the resignation of Ange DeFosse from the task force and thanks her for her contribution.
Comments? In favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Ingalls, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the notes of the Environmental Task Force dated November 25th, 2025, and the council approves the 2026 work plan for the task force, and the council approves filing the vacant voluntary sector member in accordance, approves filling the vacant voluntary sector member in accordance with the procedural policy.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item C, Economic Development Task Force.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Ingalls. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the November 17th, 2025 notes of the Economic Development Task Force.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item 13D, Economic Development Task Force Joint Meeting with Central Frontenac.
Moved by Councillor Ingalls, seconded by Councillor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the November 20th, 2025 notes of the Joint Economic Development Task Force meeting with Central Frontenac Economic Development Committee.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Item 14, giving notice of motion.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Ingalls. Be resolved, the council receives the notice of motion from Deputy Mayor Hudel regarding amending the township's official plan and zoning bylaw to discourage rural cooperatives on waterfront properties. And the council will consider this request at the January 16th, 2026 council meeting.
Comments? Councillor Inglis?
Will there be consultation with county planning staff on the detailed wording of how this will be done? How's that going to be handled?
So if this motion is approved, then on January 16th, you guys can discuss how you want to proceed with that. But yes, if there's going to be an OPA or a zoning bylaw amendment or both, you would definitely have to use planning staff.
Thank you.
Any final comments? In favor of the resolution? Carried. Item 15, motions, written notice of which has been given. There are none. Council verbal reports. Let me get there. Okay, so it hasn't been that long since we met. November 22nd, I, along with Councillor Fowler, attended the Frontenac HEF Club membership dinner in Verona. We had a Housing Advisory Task Force meeting this past week, and we have a county council meeting this coming Wednesday, December the 17th. So nothing on the North Frontenac Lake Association Alliance, nothing on the Municipal Service. Well, we did have a Municipal Service Corporation meeting. It was a virtual meeting, and we did direct the staff to remove governance and remove finance out of the FMSC technical committee and put it with staff and with the board of directors or some other entity. But it's coming away from nuts and bolts. Councillor Good's not with us. Councillor Regent's not with us. Councillor Hudel, Deputy Mayor Hudel.
So we had a MVCA board meeting on Monday. Big part of that meeting was the budget, which was approved, and it was a small amount increase for North Frontenac, $2,000. That's all I think. And then just give an update on the amalgamation of the MVCAs, the conservation authorities. There's been a lot of meetings. There was one in Ottawa that staff here attended. There was one in Vaughan that we were invited to. These are really public consultations that the ministry is looking at. Their decision has probably been made already, so I'm not really sure why we're doing public consultations. But anyway, the good news is, well, not necessarily good news, but some potential good news, is that Ottawa Council passed a resolution to a sort of a change. And what they want to do is to combine 3 of the conservation authorities of this area into one. So that's probably a little better for us. It wouldn't be such a large conservation authority. And they want to separate the Ottawa River area from the St. Lawrence. So we'll see where that goes. That was passed unanimously, I believe on Wednesday or Thursday of this week. That's all I have. Oh, and then I was at a signing ceremony for the KMP Trail on this week too, just acknowledging the MDCA has passed on lands to the 3 counties.
Nice picture, by the way.
Oh, I know.
I wonder who put it on Facebook. Deputy Mayor. Okay, so Counselor Hermer. You get a report. Okay, Counselor Fowler.
Yes, the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance, we had a meeting yesterday. It was a virtual meeting because of the weather. We did have an agreement finalized with the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs. Also, regarding the one pass system that we hope will be in place, there's about 3 of us that are going to be at Roma, and through Central Frontenac, we're going to have a delegation go to discuss that with the Minister Clark. The seniors and law enforcement together, we have a SALT meeting in Plevna on January 22nd, 2026, and it's regarding frauds and scams. And the Frontenac Ontario Provincial Police Board will have a meeting on the 18th of December, and I'll be at that meeting.
Thank you. Counselor Inglis.
Nothing to report on Ward 3 Lakes.
Okay, so introduction and reading of bylaws.
Moved by Counselor Ingalls, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce the following bylaws that have been circulated to all members of council. Bylaw 2025-58 to close up and sell a portion of the Shore Road allowance. 2025-59 to adopt the capital and operating budget, and 2025-61 to sign agreement with Diabetes Canada, and that these bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
No comments? Seeing none, in favor of the resolution? Carried. That takes us to item 18, public forum. I'm going to start with the council chambers. Mr. Morton?
Donald Morton here. I just have some questions mostly around the.
Donald, I want you to bring that mic just a little bit lower, just a couple.
Right there?
Yeah, so you speak right into it.
Just about the Integrity Commissioner report that was in the agenda. I noticed that you guys, I don't think you received it properly. There was 3 things in the report. There was, you receive it. There was accept or decline the penalty by Mr. And the third one there was to make decide on how you're going to release it publicly. You guys did not decide how you're going to release the report publicly.
Okay, so on that. Okay, Carrie, go ahead.
So actually, we do have our procedural, but not our procedural, but our policy, code of conduct policy, which allows us to do it the way that we did. We also discussed it with the Integrity Commissioner. We had an extremely full packed agenda at our last meeting, and it wasn't the time to bring it up. That's why it was done the way it was.
Yeah, on that response, we did accept the resolution or the recommendation on the report, and we amended the resolution on the floor to ensure that there'd be no question about whether or not we should apply the recommended penalty, which we did.
Okay, thank you. So just to be clear, making it public right now as it stands is just being on the Civic Web forum as a document anybody can access. Okay. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I understand council cannot change the Integrity Commissioner's findings or recommendations, and that an apology is not required from council and region. For the sake of public trust, does council expect that when a member has been found to have misled residents, they voluntarily correct the record in public, including for local media who relied on those statements.
I think a public apology would be nice. However, we would have to discuss that, and Coastal Region is not here today. And we'd have no opportunity to ask her if she would like to make a public apology.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, is there anyone online?
Okay, so we do have one person, Kelly Willis.
Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for the time. I just had one question about the EV station. Is there any way that we could reduce the number of outlets that are there? Right now, there's 2, and I've seen in the past that some stations only have 1 charging station. Would that reduce the costs at all?
Kelly, we are unable to reduce the number of stations. We could reduce the rate of charge for about a year, but that would probably work against us in the long run. This is because of the granting agencies. Like, we own these things outright, and the grants covered 100% of the cost. So they essentially tell us how we're going to operate them.
Okay.
We cannot reduce the number we have. I assure you, we've
Okay.
already tried that.
So reducing the rate at which the flow of the energy comes out of the station is one of the options. Does that, I think that what's very important is as
Kelly, whenever we have you on Zoom, there are times it fades out. So I'm going to assume that you're asking why we just don't reduce it to the 50 kilowatts. That would be for both chargers combined. That would be extremely slow, and people tend to, in EVs, is my understanding, and based on Brooks' report as well, people tend to plan their trips and their timing according to the availability and the location of EV stations. And if we only had a 50 kilowatt charger, that may end up only being 25. If you had 2 vehicles in there, it'd be tremendously slow. So why would they come here? Why would they do it? And we would only be limited to do that for about a year as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking more about the costs, the underlying costs. The people aren't here right now. And you always have the option to kind of increase the flow later on if there is more usage. I think that the charge station being located there is more of an emergency, and asking people to actually kind of visit the north and provide these facilities for them. So cutting back on the charging time right now can help with the finances, even in a small way, but having the stations there is commendable.
Thank you. I assure you, we've been through all of this over and over again, and we go like a 42% reduction in the delivery costs. Of course, then Hydro One and the Ontario Energy Board raised the cost of the supply of electricity. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other. We're doing our best, and we're trying to promote these units now. And we're looking to next summer to be an improvement over this summer. Remember, we're only into this about 7 months.
Yes.
So
yes.
You have to build.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Council.
If there's anyone else that wishes to speak, please use the raise hand feature. Seeing none.
Thank you, one and all. Now we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we're going to ask to clear the council chamber because we're going into a closed session.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Ingalls. Be resolved that council retires to closed session at 10:41 a.m. to adopt minutes of a closed meeting held November 21st, 2025, and to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically attendance at task force meetings.
In favor? Carried. Welcome back, everyone. We have just adjourned from a closed meeting, in which we adopted the minutes of the closed council meeting of November 21st, 2025, and the special closed council training meeting of November 21st, 2025. And further, we discussed personal matters about an identifiable individual, including a municipal or local board employees. And Tara, will you please read the resolution?
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, second by Councillor Ingalls. Be it resolved that council removed a member from the EDTF due to attendance issues, and that council instructed the manager of community development to advertise the position per the procedural policy.
In favor of the resolution? Carried. Okay. So now we have the confirmatory bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Ingalls, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hudel. Be it resolved that bylaw 2025-62, being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of council for its regular meeting held December 12, 2025, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Comments? No, Phyllis? You're going to get to see it in a second. In favor? Carried. Adjournment?
Moved by Deputy Mayor Hudel, seconded by Councillor Ingalls. Be it resolved that council adjourns the meeting at 11:09 a.m. until January 16, 2026, or at the call of the chair.
Final comments? In favor? Carried. Merry Christmas, one and all.